Hello and welcome to Creatives on Speed, where we talk to creative thinkers, makers and doers about their lives, work and inspirations. And I'm delighted to have on today Paul Middleton, who's an amazing art director who I've had the pleasure of working with before. How are you doing, Paul?
Yeah, I'm doing very well, thank you very much. And thank you for introducing me onto the show. A couple of things before we get going, if it's all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to say thank you ever so much for JR Oates Art, for the piece of new creative that you sent me. It's all part of your new Instagram Art at Home, making the best use of lockdown. And also for your being shortlisted for Women in Marketing.
Well, that's very kind of you little flatterer, you.
I'll make sure I did my research.
You did, and I think charm is a good place to start, actually, as you're a very charming person, and I do think that relationships are very important in any creative industry you work in. And I'm going to throw back at you, actually, and say thank you to you, because when I first went freelance, you were the person I looked up to, really, because you had lots of really great insights in how to reach out to people and connect with people, and just really gave me a lot of motivation and really got a lot of help in terms of like getting out there and just sort of just doing it anyway and not being afraid. So thank you for that.
Well, no, you're very welcome. And I think if we're going to be passing on thanks to people,
can we do this all day, shall we?
We'll just pass it on forwards. I think the person who gave me the inspiration for that approach to going out there was actually Dave Trott, because when I first came down to London, I came down with no network, no writer, no real insight in how to get into the industry, just a head full of ideas and optimism. And he's one of the first people I sent an email to, which at the time he was at GGT. And I thought, what's the possibility of this guy who's running a multi-million-pound agency responding to all my emails? And he did. And I actually still have it. And he just wrote a list of things that you could do, regular, daily, small actions that consistently, if you did, would get you a job in marketing. So if I've benefited from that and you've benefited from that, I think we owe him a drink.
We do owe him a drink. Let's talk about Dave Trott, because not everyone watching will know who he is. So Dave is he's a bit of a advertising legend.
Yeah, essentially the reason I reached out to him more than anything else is the fact that if I look at my childhood, he produced most of my favourite ads. So you're going, who better is there to actually send an email to, and not just an inflammatory, blah, 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 help me out, whatever, just a very sincere email that said, you know what, I grew up watching your ads, he did Ariston and on and on and on, which is incredible. Hello, Tosh got a Toshiba. And I think he also worked with a guy called John Webster, Kiora Adora. So, all my childhood ads, I absolutely adored growing up. So when I sat down writing the email, I just wrote, these are all the things that have helped me on my path to where I am. Would you be able to help? That was simple as that. And bless him, he did. And for that, he was always going to be a fan.
Yeah, and he's also written some fantastic books.
I think the best is probably, they're all good. There's 1 + 1 = 3. I think Predatory Thinking's probably the best one, just for kind of its disruptive place in the market. It's looking at problems from upstream rather than just downstream where everyone else is. And I think from that you create stronger ideas and ones with greater cut through, like his stuff from the 80s and 90s, really.
Yeah, so let's go back there again. So you talked about being inspired by ads on TV, but what other sort of creative things were you doing when you were growing up?
I remember it really vividly, living when in Doncaster and in Maastricht, being called into the house when the TV ads were on. So I never used to come in and watch the TV because it was crap. I'd run into the house, watch the TV ads, sing the TV ads, run out. Because it's just like, there's no point, you think the things I grew up with was like, you've got Ariston, you've got Cornetto ads, you've got Cinzano Bianco with Joan Collins and Leonard Rossiter. You've got the was it a finger of fudge? Just enough to give. You had that. You had
Club Biscuit.
And, even like the classics like Scotch, I'm going to tell you how it's going to be.
Yeah.
Skellington. And you go, they were such iconic pieces of work.
Yeah.
Watching everyday TV was just a waste of time, because you go, I'm not going to learn anything from that, because these were insightful, really smart, quick-witted. And to me, it was just an insight into, oh, creativity could work. And when I was really small, because we'd moved around a lot, creativity was in a lot of ways. It was like my happy place.
Yeah.
I'd get home every day from school, and if I was in Holland, I'd go to the library in RAF Southend, walk through the door, I'd be given a massive roll of paper, a load of pens, and I would sit there for hours, from like 3:30 till 6, night after night. And that went on even till like I was 15, 16, drawing every day. Because to me, that was just my happy place, where I enjoyed creating worlds and stories, not for the output of anyone else, other than just the fact that I just enjoyed it.
Yeah, the pure joy of it as well, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that really comes across with you, having worked with you when you're creating stuff, is that, you know, you've still got that sense of joy about it.
I think if you have that intrinsic love, it's something that can't be faked. You either have that energy, that passion, that enthusiasm for it, or you don't. And to me, because it's got such strong anchors in my childhood and my development, it's always the thing that was purest and warmest to my heart. So in order to do it, it's kind of funny when you're thinking of the prep for this, right, what could I actually tell that might be insightful or useful or just quite comical? And I remember 2 stories of my childhood which kind of put me in the path of advertising. The first one was when I was 6 and I was living in Holland, and I did an ad for Sun-Made raisins. And it was triggered by you saying, do you want to do this? And I heard it through the grapevine, and I did all these little characters out of great like raisins and drew arms and legs on them, and just did a little storyboard in junior school.
Amazing.
And that was just like, oh, this is fun. And it went down really well. You know, I was obviously crap at everything else in school, but that went down really well. And then the other story was when I was at, you know, when you hit like 15 and 16 and you have a career interview.
Yeah.
I sat down and was told I'd be best as a travel agent, which was quite comical, because I was like, well, I'm not sure. Well, I've lived in Holland and I lived in Doncaster. It doesn't exactly make me, you know, Alan Wicker.
Yeah.
But even that, within the second day of that, I was bored. So I started doing flyers. So I got letterheads and started doing, I asked the woman who was running the travel agent, I said, what's your promotion this month? And they said, Disney World. So I drew up all these flyers for Disney World with like 5% off of this flyer. I showed it to her. I said, what happens if we run this? And this is like 15, 16. And she went, yeah, all right. So she sent me across the road with a £5 to do a load of photocopies and then to distribute it. And I got the copies for nothing, because one of my mates owned the news agent.
Yeah.
So trousered £3 and gave the other £2 out. Other £2 to my paperboy friends and said, can you distribute these for me? So I just sat in the park eating cornettos while everyone else was working hard.
So creator, distributor, doing the media as well, you know.
But actually, the ironic thing was they got 2 bookings off the back end of it.
Wow.
So
amazing.
Why did it take me so long to get into this industry? Because I've absolutely adored it from such a young age.
You're so natural. So yeah, I mean, when you were starting out, you didn't go straight into sort of being an art director and agencies. You sort of did a bit of a squiggly path, a bit like myself. So talk to us a bit more about that.
Well, when I finished art college, I didn't really know what to do. So I thought, I'm quite kind of technical minded. So I thought I'll become a graphic designer. So I did that for about 6 years. And I pretty much pushed that as far as I could go creatively, in terms of I wanted to do more idea wise. It was more functional design stuff, which is fine. And it's a good skill set to learn. But I was like, no, there's ideas. I love ideas. I love ideas. So I applied to Falmouth to do the art course, the advertising course, got on that, went and did that, came to London for the first time, lasted about 7 months, absolutely dreadful portfolio. It was absolutely hideous. I think I've still got it somewhere, but it's a shocker. And me and my writer were clueless, no strategy, no good strategic thinking, no real plan of what agency we were going to get into, and no ambition of what success looked at. So we got kind of kicked round the park and got sent home like naughty kids. So I got pushed back to the Midlands for a year, where I kind of got all the books out. I bought like the copy book. I bought John Hegarty's books. I bought Ogilvy's books. I bought Howard Gossage books, and I read and read and read. I thought, right, I'm going to go back into London, but in order to do this, I can't make myself look a plum, and I want to go informed. So I'd got all the bit from Dave Trott about what you should do, how you should do it. So I started then looking at the agencies I wanted to apply and get into, and just followed that path, which surprisingly worked. So I guess I am another bit. His beer account's going up quite extremely.
Yeah, I know. He's going to be waiting at the bar for you when we're out lockdown. But yeah, so then you sort of, what was the first agency you started working at then as an art director?
It was an agency called WPN, which is Watson Phillips Norman, now Watson Phillips Norman Chameleon. And I only got in there by accident because I'd gone to see Martin Lithgow at AIS, which is Archibald Ingalls Stretton, and he's a director. And he was busy that day. So one of his friends said, "Oh, go and visit Giles at WPN," and walked in the door, and he said, "I really love your work. Come and meet the creative director," who for about 6 months I'd had no hope in getting there. And then a week later I got a job. I was like, amazing.
That's cool. And so when you think about then and to now and how much you've learned and how much experience you have, what are the sort of like key things that you think you would have loved to have known at the beginning that you know now? Like,
I think it's just a continual development that you need to push yourself through and actually make sure that you've got a plan for growing yourself as well as the agency. Because I think sometimes it's so exciting and so new when you get in, you get so consumed with just doing, you kind of lose track of where's the next step, you know. And I think I threw everything into the 3.5, 4 years I was there. But if I'm looking back at it, I thought, well, there are key points in this that had been missed in terms of my development, which if I'd have played a more active part on, I could have probably pushed them into doing. So, yeah, and also the fact that I think that consistently you need to grow your own knowledge base. You know, you can never sit, you know this is yourself and all the stuff you're constantly doing is you've got to keep evolving. You've got to keep up to speed with things. You've got to keep growing your knowledge base. You've got to keep learning. And I think if you do that, you keep your energy and passion for what you do alive. And well, you're more inspirational to be around. And then the caliber of what you produce is better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what always really shocks me is when you meet people who have been in the industry, ad industry, creative industries for a long time, and that's their job, and they've only done that job. And you ask them what else they do, and there's sometimes very little because that's all they've done. And they kind of, it's sort of like their learning stopped with that job. And that, you know, I think having other creative outlets apart from like the one thing that you do that pays the bills or whatever it is so important because it can feed in so many inspiring things.
Well, I think it's that idea of keeping growing. And when I mean keep growing, I'm not saying that everything has to stick within the remit of direct marketing or CRM or digital marketing. You know, it could be learning the bass guitar, it could be being a stand-up comedian, it could be writing a screenplay, it could be teaching. You've got to keep your mind growing in as many different areas as possible. And even if it's the fact of going to see things traditionally you wouldn't think you'd like, I think it's important to feed your brain with those things because that's the way you keep fresh and keep your eyes innovative. Otherwise, there's a tendency to go stale really quickly because you're drawing from the same pool all the time if you're not kind of going out and learning new things. And then that's when I think you just become a creative of formula over a creative of ideas.
I think that's so true. I mean, one of the big things that you've embarked on over the last sort of, I don't know, 5 years is taking part in the Camino. So tell, for those who don't know what the Camino is, explain what it is.
Yeah, it's essentially, if you want to put a religious hat on, it's a Christian pilgrimage, but you can swerve that when it comes to me. Essentially, it's a walk I'd heard about 10, 15 years ago through my uncle who's a monk. And it was always kind of in the back of my mind that I wouldn't mind doing it someday, but as everything, you need a catalyst to act, you know, like a character in a film or a book. And the catalyst for me was one of my mates died in Kabul about 7, 8 years ago. He went over there as a bomb disposal expert. So you know how that's going to play out ultimately. And we'd grown up together running Duke of Edinburgh expeditions in North Wales. So I thought, what a better way as a final send-off and something he could enjoy himself is by doing the walk. And it's a 799 kilometre walk across the width of Spain. So you go over the Pyrenees, through all the regions of Spain, Navarra, Rioja, Galicia, and end up in Santiago de Compostela. It's phenomenal. It's the best thing I've ever done.
And you've done it in sections, haven't you? And that's a kind of a normal way to, like, well, one of the ways you can do it. That's right.
Yeah, I think just due to the constraints of work, that taking 6 weeks off, which when you think about it now, would have been quite easy to do, but back at the time it wasn't possible. And I think by breaking it into 3 different stories, you capture 3 significant points of time in my life, which are all dramatically different, which work well to the idea of writing a book on. And that's pretty much what I've spent the last couple of years doing, which is looking at the development, the storylines, and the production of this. And I've done loads of research in terms of the books are out there in the marketplace, Facebook groups, asking questions and stuff. And the one thing that I always used to love as a kid was like those half-an-hour TV shows, like Champion the Wonder Horse, Monkey.
Yeah.
Or probably my favourite was Kung Fu with David Carradine.
Yeah.
And I thought, wouldn't that be cool to write the book as one big journey, but 34 separate little stories?
Yeah.
But within, I don't want to say overarching because that's such a marketing word, but just a theme running through it.
Yeah.
Ties it all together. So that's what I've done. And I've absolutely loved it. And so far, I've used a few old copywriting friends from like Neil French and stuff to test it on. And they all seem to like it. So, yeah.
Well, the bits I've read, and you share little snippets on social media, don't you? Are really intriguing and really, really good to read. So I can't wait to see when it comes out.
I think it's one of those things creatively. It's the end goal is just the production of something that I can look back on and say, yeah, that's the spirit of it. That's the essence.
Yeah. It's just sort of the process is just it's a completion, and it's just I've got something I'm proud of.
Yeah, and I've been quite fortunate that I've shared quite a lot of the early stuff of people who've walked it. And I said, does this resonate with where you were at that time space in terms of your levels of anxiousness, or when your levels of exhaustion, or just the pure joy of being alive and just having creative ideas run at you? And they're like, yeah, this kind of encapsulates it. So that kind of gives you the energy to keep going, because you go, my audience understand it. And even if they don't necessarily tap into the story from their own perspective, it'll fire off their own memories, and you go, that's job done.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think the Camino has taught you about yourself and also about creativity?
I think the main one is what it's taught me about creativity is the fact that we live now in a world of distraction, in terms of, 1,500 messages you may see a day. Everyone touches their phone every 12 minutes. And I think the Meseta, which is like the desert part of Spain, teaches you that the fact that if you really want to connect with yourself, with creative ideas, you need solace and silence. And I think if you read Robin Sharma's 5 a.m. Club, there's a reason why creativity always comes to you at unexpected times. And when is that? And if you look at the patterns of why that happens, it's predominantly always in a quiet place, always a place free of distraction. And there's always some kind of trigger, whether it's exercise, whether it's running, that kind of is the catalyst to it. And I think the thing I've learned more than anything is the process of how I switch my brain into an expectant mode of doing good work. Same way like Rafa Nadal accesses his best mindset, or Serena Williams does. There's a sequence your brain runs, which you may not be aware of, that puts you in that headspace and to perform. And that could be, I remember you saying one of the techniques you use is actually using music.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's one part of your sequence, and that's a whole other hour I could talk about that. It's working out your sequence that puts you in the mindset to deliver work of the best quality. And to me, silence is the number one, because it allows the noise of your idea to come through, not the noise of everyday life.
Yeah.
Which is why, to me, open plan offices where there's music pumping out seems to be counterintuitive to how creativity is. But I understand that creatives, as much as they fear the white page, they fear the silence of not having an idea. So that's why music's sometimes used.
And also, you know, it just shows you that everybody's brain works completely differently as well. We all need different inputs, and that ultimately create different outputs, you know. So I think that's what's so great about creativity, is it's not like a one size fits all, do this and this works for you. It's like, try this, see if it works for you. If it doesn't, fine, bin it, do something else. You know, Paul, I could talk to you all day about creativity, among many other things. But it's been fantastic to talk to you. So looking forward to hearing more about the book. Does it have a title yet?
Oh God, yeah, it's had its title since day one. So it's Down Pilgrim. So it's kind of contrary to modern day life.
Yeah. And if people want to find you, find out more about you, follow your journey, and the Camino journey, but of course, where can they find you?
Yeah, well, you've got email, it's Paul Middleton Ltd as in limited @gmail.com. Instagram, it's Down Pilgrim, and web address is Paul Middleton Ltd, or all one word, .com.
Paul, been fantastic to speak to you. Have a great day, evening. The light's been going down as we've been talking, so the night is drawing in, so I'll let you go and enjoy your evening.
It's been wonderful. Thank you ever so much for your time.
Take care, my love. Take care. Bye.
Bye.